he asked me one time, well, how much are you making on the side? And I was like, oh, I haven't even calculated it. Like, to me, it was like, oh,
Just
$200.
yeah.
Oh, $800.
Extra
Like,
money
yeah,
here.
it was just extra money. And I calculated how much I was making from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. compared to 9 to 5. And it was like almost double my hourly rate.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, decision made.
What's up, guys? I'm Chris. Welcome back to CEO Hot Seat. Today we got a special guest, Juliet, Peay, with your personal brand coach. Juliet, how you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to be here.
We're glad to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about what is your personal brand coach? What do you do, and kind of where your background came from and what led you to it?
Yeah. So your personal brand coach is, I guess you could say, a consultancy. I'm the sole person in it, really. I have a couple contractors. But what I help people do is I help them express their personal brand. I don't say build, I don't say grow, because it's something that everybody already has. And it's really just about bringing people's personality into their business and establish themselves as the expert in their field. But with that personality that they bring, that's different than anybody else is going to have, because everyone is unique. I feel like how everyone runs their business is unique. The way that they approach things is unique. And I really like to highlight that in people, because so much of solopreneurs, I feel like they're afraid to become like a big company so fast that they have the most generic website. They have stock photos. They say, we instead of I. And I try to kind of break down those walls and let them know that they have permission to be themselves and show up how they want to.
That's super cool. How important do you think it is for people to bring their personality to their business?
I feel like it's huge. For one, for their own, I don't want to say mental health because that sounds intense, but like for their enjoyment of their business, I think it's really important, because when you are free to be yourself and you are able to show up authentically that way, I think you do business with people that accept you for who you are. You also know your boundaries and you feel better saying no when you need to. So I feel like it's huge. And not everybody has to be a personal brand. I feel like I'm kind of like the flip side of Britton Briley and his philosophy with ghost marketing. Is I know he used to do Viking and then he switched to Ghost, and he was like, everything got better once I switched to a company, which can be true for some people. For others, I feel like the example of thinking like, has anybody bought anything from Cardone Enterprises? Maybe not, but does everybody know who Grant Cardone is? Yes. So I feel like if somebody is comfortable using their brand in a personal way, it can pay off dividends in the longevity of their career, especially if they switch companies. If they're serial entrepreneurs, people will say, oh, Chris used to do this, but now he's doing that. They remember him. Same with, you, Ray. I know you do multiple businesses.
I suffer for it with it now. Yeah. I mean, I think that I'm trying to figure that out, as like trying to get away from being the Mac of all trades and getting into real estate and making my name known for that. So,
yes.
And I think, it really depends on the industry, right? Like, certain brands you are your personal brand, but then certain brands you just kind of want to push and not have to be a part of, like we saw with like Legacy Decks and stuff like that. He was able to step away from it. So I bet that's getting more and more prevalent with the way that social media is becoming so popular. But then, like, how do you stand out, know? So that's pretty cool.
And especially on LinkedIn, I feel like that's a really clear place to establish a personal brand, because nobody really follows company pages that much. Whereas if like the founder of that company is going to be sharing those updates, they're going to attach to him or her and start following that person and their insights and their thoughts.
Yeah, company pages really kind of fallen off, like Facebook and stuff like that too. I've noticed that recently, so that's smart. I didn't know LinkedIn. Like, I never knew LinkedIn was even that good until most recent. So.
Yeah. And you think, even connection requests, like you send connection requests, you meet new people, you network, it's going to be your personal person.
For sure.
Doing that.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love what you said too about as long as you're clear and direct, like on your personal brand, it kind of helps you solidify your customer, right? And attract the right customers. That's awesome.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And that means different things to different people. Some people are like, they're Christian business owners and they really just want to help Christians grow their business.
For sure.
Other people are they're super political based. And so they're going to run everything through the lens of how they feel politically. Other people, like, I did a values exercise, and my values are like fun, imagination, and realness. And those are the people that I like to work with. I don't care anybody's political affiliation or their religious background or anything like that. I'm just like, if you're down to have fun, you want to think bigger, and you're going to be like real and not put up this like, generic version of yourself, then that's my kind of person that I want to work with.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I feel like that's so easy to do in business, is to put up a generic version of yourself, right? Especially starting out, because you're trying to attract all these people. So you pretend like you're somebody that you're really not, and then inside your mental health takes a dive.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
I think that's what's cool about this podcast, and like it gave us a chance to be like ourselves and talk like we normally talk and be the people we are. And I think more people gravitate towards that, because then they realize you're not just this generic like fill in what you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And well, especially with social media, people don't even meet you anymore. So like, if you're not being authentic, then you're just kind of like skipped and people just scroll past you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think too, a lot of entrepreneurs, they feel like when they first go out on their own, they're like, oh, finally I've like broken the corporate ties. I can do whatever. And then the second they're trying to get clients, they're like, oh, wait, they kind of get scared again and think about how they have to present. And Tyler laughed at me one time because when I went out on my own, I was like, I'm going to be the Avril Lavigne of business, and I'm going to like, wear t-shirts, and I'm probably going to dye my hair soon, and I'm going to be so, fun and funky, like the way that I never could be in corporate America, because, you have to go by the dress code and stuff. And then he saw me one time change my shirt like 4 times throughout the day. And he was like, what are you doing?
Trying
like
to
you
fit.
changed your shirt 4 times. And I was like, well, first I had a meeting with like this tax person, and then I had a meeting with like a B2B company, and, I want to secure these contracts. And like the day that I stopped doing that, and I was just like, this is what I'm wearing. You're either cool with it or you're not. Like, I know I'm good at what I do regardless.
Yeah.
It was so much easier to like just get through the day, and also not like put on makeup at 4 p.m. for a meeting. Like it's either like I'm wearing it or I'm not. I know my skill set. So
yeah, I think that's cool. I think that's cool to build off of yourself and be proud of like who you are and what you can do.
Yeah.
You don't need to like pose, which is nice.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what are some of the services that you offer?
Yeah. So the first one, and I think the most prevalent one, is kind of the intro coaching session. And so what I do in that is I will go through primarily someone's LinkedIn, because most of the people that I work with, they're trying to establish a brand on LinkedIn. I'll look through their profile. I might look through their website, and I'll do an audit of where they're already sharing some personal things in kind of a good way, and then other areas that can improve. So I just had a client, Brandon, who is an insurance agent. So he does work for a company, but it's really important for him to be on LinkedIn and connecting with people all the time. And he had some posts that were great where he would like be at a golf tournament. He was catching up with an old buddy. He would share a picture. He'd talk about, what they chatted up on the golf course. That was an awesome example of kind of like a personal branding post where he was showing his personality. And then he had another one where he had gone to a conference, and it was basically just like a picture of the panel. And it was like, had a great time at the conference. And like, that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's so much opportunity to bring out more in there. And then I also have an assessment that I have them take that asks them a lot of questions that they have forgotten about. So it's kind of like those icebreaker questions when people are like, so tell me something fun about you. And you're like, I don't know. like we're so close to ourselves that we forget what's interesting. And so I'm able to come in as a coach and ask, like, how do you feel about your name? Did you have a crazy nickname as a kid? What did you like to do? And, as a kid, or how did you get to where you are now? I'll ask them about times that they failed. I'll ask them about times they felt disappointed, times they made mistakes. I'll ask them about their hobbies. Like, I go ham on asking all these questions, but I can pull out some like red threads of things that kind of go together and make sense that they're not thinking of, because for them it's usually like, well, I had this job, then I had this job, and it seems kind of disconnected. Whereas I can pull out like, oh, well,
how did it
like,
lead to that?
Yeah, like
what's the story?
Yes, my client Brandon, he in insurance, he's great at negotiating. He used to be a rapper, and so he would have to negotiate like with the bars and with the venues and stuff how he was going to get paid. And so that's like a personal story that he's not thinking about sharing, because in insurance, who cares that you used to be a rapper? And I'm like, somebody does.
I mean, there's more
some
behind
awesome
it. Yeah.
Client. Yeah. And so it's those types of things that I ask lots of questions. And also that gives them like a gold mine of content, because then they realize how many stories they can share based on all those questions and answers.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Brandon used to rap for 3 shots of JMO and a Coors Light.
Probably. I don't know. But yeah. But it was cool to hear how he used to negotiate and like, do stuff like that. And
for sure.
And yeah.
No, I think that's awesome. So you said you came from corporate America. Tell me about what made you want to switch into being like an entrepreneur and business owner?
Yeah. So I got my degree in journalism. I decided I did not want to do the news. I wanted to get a job in marketing. But the first job I got out of college was kind of branded as marketing, but it was more like receptionist / do our flyers sometimes.
Yeah.
So after about a year of doing that, I decided to go on to the next job, which was kind of the same. It was, again, kind of promoted as like legal assistant / event planner. And then the job was a little bit more focused, again, on being a receptionist. And so I kept getting these kind of receptionist jobs with a little bit of marketing and was like, this is okay, but it wasn't places that had marketing departments. And I just kind of kept getting frustrated with that. I felt like I'm coming here, I'm doing the job, but like there's not enough for me to do. All the advice you're given when you're a young professional is like, go in early, stay late, like sign up for all the grunt work and stuff. And that just wasn't working for me. And so I would switch jobs, and then I got a job as an executive assistant at a really cool company. And it paid a lot better. So I was kind of fine with like throwing away the creative side for a time, because I was also hoping that being an executive assistant would get me in the door to eventually like work my way into a creative role. I stayed there longer than my previous jobs, and I really loved the people, but I still just was not getting that creative opportunity. And after a while of that, I just kind of hit the wall where like, instead of having a little bit of creativity on the side, I just had none. It was all admin.
Yeah.
And I found that to be exhausting. So I started kind of giving myself permission again to write. And I think that was the difference for me is every time I would leave a job, they would be like, you had so much potential, but like you were good in your role, or, we just didn't have anything else for you. And I'm like, well, I don't want to hear that I have potential and it not be invested in. So I started giving myself the opportunity to invest in myself. So I would use my PTO to take days off and take like marketing courses on LinkedIn. Cool. I started writing articles on LinkedIn, and then I felt like this is too sporadic. Like I'm just writing when I have an idea in my head. So I started the blog Greenville Enthusiast a long time ago. It's not there anymore. But I decided that I was going to write about Greenville and kind of establish a portfolio that way. And that was really fun. I would go to restaurants. If the blog was still up, you would see Chris and Kristen. Yeah, you'd go with me. Yeah. You see Chris and Kristen on my blog, and we would like review, the restaurant. I would go to boutiques. I would, buy some clothes and give. Yeah, we did an Airbnb one time, which was awesome. And so that was really fun. And that was able to finally secure me the marketing job that I wanted. And I also started freelancing around that time because, especially real estate agents, my first client in copywriting before I became your personal brand coach was a real estate agent who was like, hey, obviously you know the area. I need a newsletter. I'll pay you to write it. And I was like, yes, finally, like all this work I've been doing on the side for free is going to turn into income. So I did that, and then I did get a marketing job full time, and that was all during COVID. So I'm kind of skipping a lot, but during COVID, when I was still working as executive assistant and we got sent home because of the shutdown, I had too much time to reflect, and I was just like, I've spent like 4 years now bouncing around corporate America wanting to do marketing, and I keep accepting jobs that are not the right fit. So I really need to figure this out. So I did get a marketing job full time, but I was still freelancing on the side because I liked that I was able to kind of make my own money. So I would freelance from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. and then I would go into my marketing job 9 to 5.
Wow.
And so my marketing job had everything under the sun. I was doing graphics, events, social media, blogging, email campaigns, probably a handful of other things. And about a year in, I was just completely exhausted, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I had to make that decision, am I going to go full-time into freelance writing and doing what I really like? Am I going to take that chance? Or am I going to keep waiting in corporate America for the next raise, the next promotion, the next opportunity? And one thing that was really helpful is I had been in those entrepreneurial groups in Greenville. So I was in the Powerhouse that Holly Calloway started. I've been in Greenville Young Professionals, and I saw other people doing it. And one of the people that was really helpful is Brian Knox. I know y'all just had him on the podcast. He's such an encourager to everybody. He asked me one time, well, how much are you making on the side? And I was like, oh, I haven't even calculated it. To me, it was
just
$200.
Yeah.
Oh, $800. It was just extra
Yeah.
money. And I calculated how much I was making from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. compared to 9 to 5. And it was almost double my hourly rate.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, decision made. So I went out on my own and as a freelance writer. And then I was doing everything under the sun again. Like, I know we were talking about this earlier. It's like you go out as an entrepreneur and then everyone says to pick a niche. Yeah. And you're like, well, how am I going to pick a niche?
Yeah. You don't know what works.
I'm supposed to do everything.
Yeah.
And I got to pay bills, right?
Yeah. And I got to pay bills. Yeah, exactly.
Just take whatever you can. I think that's a tough thing, but it's pretty incredible. Like, I mean, that's a good story. Like what you mentioned about Brian, it was like going from something that he really loved to another thing that he really loved as a full-time career. And then he kind of just said, okay, enough is enough. I'm just going to follow my passion.
Yes.
And then everybody behind him just pushed that.
Yeah.
And even if it was like a hit money-wise or more time spent as an entrepreneur, it didn't matter because he was in love with it. So
yes. Yeah.
That's always something pretty amazing. It's like, as far as like entrepreneurship goes, find that faith and follow it.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes. It feels so good to just finally have that control and feel like I'm in charge of investing in my potential.
Yeah.
And that's what I never had in corporate America was I didn't feel like I had anybody really advocating for me. And I'm not saying that like my bosses were bad by any means. They weren't toxic. Like it was not terrible. So I'm privileged in that sense. But at the same time, like I am a high achiever. So to be in areas where I feel like I'm not being able to do that.
You're just capped.
Yeah, it just capped. I'm like, all right, what am I doing with my life? So
for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think was like one of the biggest hurdles transitioning over from corporate America to being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I think figuring out where to get your resources from, because when you go out on your own, all of a sudden you're asking people like, how do I get clients? Where do I get clients? Where do they exist? And you feel like there's just some like secret pool of clientele
like
that you don't that you like don't know where that is, and you forget that like when you had the stable job you just like clocked in like, and that was like your only worry for the day. And also that like, to be completely honest, you could like slack off if you needed to. Well, not needed to, but you could slack off. Like if you were kind of done at 4, it was not the end of the world. Whereas entrepreneurship, like it almost never stops, and so you kind of have to set your own boundaries. But like in the same way that on like corporate America is like chasing paycheck to paycheck, entrepreneurship is like client to client.
Yeah, sure.
Depending on how you structure your business. So, yeah, I know that was one of them.
Nice. It's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, as far as like, so you mentioned another one of the services that you're offering is like, so aside from personal branding, you also bring in like the writing for them. What are some of those, what are some people that you like to work with personally? I know you mentioned earlier when we were talking, you don't really get into the medical field and stuff like that. So what do you really like working with?
Yeah. So that's what came down into choosing my niche. So when I started my entrepreneurial career as a copywriter, and then now I've kind of pivoted into personal brand coaching, everybody was saying like, you want to work with B2B clients, you want to work in health blogging, you want to work with finance or tech. And I didn't enjoy really any of those industries. I didn't really have the experience in them. And they just weren't fun for me. And what was fun for me was working with the small business owners, like the bakers, like people who were baking. And they were like, I want to, I'm this cool baker. Like I want to express my personality on my website. And, or like photographers, just people who wanted to be themselves in their business. I really liked working with those people. And so that was kind of a struggle for me in deciding, am I going to just try to chase something that I don't enjoy as far as a niche for the money? Or am I going to go ahead and like work with like my best skill set and who's working with me already? So I decided to work with people who kind of were in the solopreneur area. Some of them already had strong personal brands. Like I write for this one guy who's a tax attorney and he sells courses, and he's like super fun. He's everywhere already. But when it came to like his email marketing, he's like, I just don't want to be doing this all the time. So I would be doing that. But then as I was doing copywriting and helping people write like their websites, their sales emails and things like that, I just saw kind of a gap between some people who would say like, okay, I need a website. This is my niche. This is my audience. And then we'd get through like the first draft and they'd be like, actually, I think I want to work in this niche and I think I want to do this instead. And I was
so
like,
they're like trying to find themselves while you're trying to find them.
Yes, they're trying to like find themselves while I'm writing for them. And I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but this is going to be like a full new project if you're changing everything about your business. And so I decided to kind of fill that gap with personal brand coaching. And that's where I start smaller with like, let's go through your LinkedIn. Let's go through some ideas. Let's kind of like nail down, what you're really about and make sure that you feel good about it before you spend like thousands of dollars investing in something else.
Sure.
And then you want to change your mind. And also some people, they need that confidence. I've had people who I've written their whole entire website and they're still afraid to post it because they're just like, I don't know, like, should I really just put it up there? Like, shouldn't I go back and hide into like the stock photo, you know, the like type of copy and stuff. And I'm just kind of like, okay, you need a second. So yeah, so switching into personal brand coaching, I feel like I'm able to fill that gap. And then if they come back later and they want the full website or they want sales emails, then I'm like, perfect, we're good to go.
Yeah, you already have the story kind of lined up. So
yeah.
Makes sense.
How do you kind of pull the stories out of the people that you're working with? Like, do you have like a questionnaire or something? Like,
yeah. So my icon assessment, that has lots of questions. I think it's like probably 35 questions.
Okay.
And I always tell them like, and so they fill it out online and then I have a follow-up call with them to kind of like dig deeper. Cause some people, they'll fill it out and they will tell me their life story in like every question. Other people, I'll be like, what do you like doing for fun? And they're like, reading.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That's
okay,
me.
what do you like reading? Yeah.
That's me. Like to a T. I
Yeah.
like anytime I take questionnaires, like 2-word answers.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
That's just not what I'm good at. I'm not good at it. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's
I can
fine.
talk about it, but
Yes.
just like writing it down is like,
Right.
first of all, my grammar's poor and I can barely spell. But
Hey, that's okay.
That's for another
what I
story.
tell people when they fill it out is I'm like, you don't have to edit yourself. You're not trying to sound good. Like, just answer as you.
Just so
like,
you can get a story together.
yes.
Yeah.
Like, pretend you're just like talking to your mom or your friend. Like,
Yeah,
there's
that's
no, because I'll ask people, like, tell me in one sentence what you do. And they're like, like they just kind of freak out. And I'm like, just keep it simple. Like, if you want to say I'm Ray Mack and I sell houses, that's fine. That's all you need to say.
Just say it,
like,
yeah,
you don't have to make
yeah.
it that much fancier.
yeah,
So yeah,
just something. You just need something.
I just need something to work
Yes.
with, and then I'll pull out more from them.
You'll
later,
make it
but
fancy. Yeah.
I'll make it fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like to at least get like one fell swoop of different things that they
For
have
sure.
been through or they're thinking about or whatever.